video for this new Rumble channel. Um, I'm just so thankful to Rumble for being there because YouTube has actually become an extreme joke, and I've been on there for quite a long time. Had a lot of views, didn't make a cent. And it's not that it's all about money, but let's just say there was thousands and thousands of hours watched, and they made a lot of money, but we didn't. And that's the way it is with them. Anyway, uh, what I do is I specialize in martial arts. I'm not a martial arts purist, meaning that uh, everything doesn't live and die with exact training that I was taught by my master or by any other master. Um, my goal is to extract the knowledge from these styles that I've learned and compound them and integrate them to make a warrior more effective all the way around, um, including hands, first, second generation combat, but also third generation, with firearms and weapons and larger strategies. I believe the Chinese, or at least the ancient Chinese, had a understanding of the core and the way that the body moved, and it shows in these styles. And specifically, I'm talking about Bagua, Baji, Pigua, Liuhe, Praying Mantis, the upper echelon martial arts that are not generally shared in their entirety to the West. It's starting to open up now. Um, our generation, I'm 50, so our generation there's a few that are older than me, but basically we were the first generation of Westerners to be allowed to learn these styles. Um, so anyway, as I said, this is not a video on Baji purism. This is a video trying to demonstrate the importance of listening to the inside. So, introspective as well as looseness, and even more importantly, letting go. Because in the Taoist arts, they believe that real skill comes without effort. If it is really your skill, if you were born to do that, it will come out naturally. So there'll be spots in here that I want to cover after we watch the video, talking about when you try too hard or things like that. And you can see it in a few spots. Now, there's no stomping in this Baji, and that's for good reason. As I said, you want to be able to hear and understand what your body's doing. And at the highest echelon of Baji itself, there's no stomping anyway. So let's enjoy the show and be a little critical. As you can see, I've gained my COVID-19. The larger version of number 5. Both hands release in a circular fashion. Shoulder turns down, head turns back, cover the carotid. Now this motion is complex, especially from a stop. Okay, let's go through it and have a little bit of a discussion. Okay, so the emphasis that I'm using here is to allow everything to flow through to its end, not to the end, like when you first learn Baji, everything stops exactly in one place. That's great when you're building foundational Baji skills, but later on when you have to do transitional combative motions, that looseness has to be continuous all the time. And when you're that loose, there's absolutely zero way to stop the energy, and you don't want to, because when it reaches its end, that is the natural flag, I guess would be the way to say it. It tells your body to continue. So there's no reset. So in other words, if you throw a specific punch and you stop the punch exactly in one spot, even if it's at the exact reach, the end of that, there's a reset, because in order to get that moving again, you must engage another motion. But if that punch comes there, hits as far as it could go, and automatically begins to move again, if your limb has the looseness to do that, then you will have zero problem with your moving forward. And the biggest thing about our system is continuous. You need to be able to reach at least 3 strikes per stance or breath, as they say. Moving forward. I don't know who thought that haircut was a good idea. I actually cut my own hair, so that's kind of funny. Handa is very difficult for most beginners. I mean, after a while, it becomes nothing. Now, I use open hand for just about everything, except for punches when I have to use a fist. Here again, the complete looseness. So it hits the bottom, and it automatically comes back on its own. So there's no imposition on the generation. The larger version of number 5. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to be using this video for this style of both hands. Release. Should have kept my mouth shut. Shoulder turns down, head turns back, cover the crowd. Now this motion is complex, especially from a stop. Okay, so the first one was natural. These next two are going to be exactly what I was talking about. When you start to try and you lose it. Now I'm back to loose. See, when you're loose, as I said, well, as I've told my students many, many times, if you can take a mental image of it coming through you rather than you being responsible for the motion, you're going to make leaps and bounds as far as progress. Because when you remove yourself from the equation and you realize that it has to be, the energy has to be allowed to exist. Um, a good example is if I make a very tight fist like the old Shaolin days where they used to go 1, 2, 3, so that it's a solid rock. No matter which way you hit with it, sorry about that, it's a solid rock. But here's the problem. This is a rock too because this is so tight. And it's very difficult to move a tightened limb. So that goes for the whole body. Obviously the Baji fist has got that covered. And then there's guys like me that 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to be punching. I'm going to be chopping the throat or, vital organs and stuff like that. So my hand's going to be open 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time. So there's never that tightness, but that goes for everywhere. I mean, all the way down to your ankles. And like right there's a good example. As you progress, things like your feet don't matter anymore. I did a demonstration with my disciple, I think it's been about a month ago, where I laid on my back on the floor and was able to explode Jing from a punch, which is a very difficult thing to do because, I mean, you've seen it a million times where these guys, they get into the ground and pound situation and the guy on the bottom really can't punch that hard. But just because you don't see it happening doesn't mean that it can't, okay? And that comes from looseness. And the only way that velocity can ever be achieved with any type of thing is for a lack of friction or a lack of something holding it back. And here, I think this is it. If you notice, there's not a whole lot going on with my legs. And that's important because if you can do that standing up, where you're very mobile and fast, or even in the air, you're going to be a lot more effective. Or if you could do it on the run. So I don't really care where I don't care about the posing. When the energy ends in an actual, you'll see other much more uh, combative forms as the months go on, especially on my Patreon. But as that energy hits the end of that intention, where I intended to put it, it's going to come back on its own. And the reason why is because when you let it go completely, your tendons will stretch. And when it reaches the end of those tendons, it's going to come back on its own. The first time I was actually taught about this, when I reached the level where it was okay to learn it, was with the Baji sword. There's a third form. There's Kunwu Jin, which is everybody used to have to learn it. And the second one is a mixture of Baji and Kunwu Jin, which actually shows some of the Fajing and the techniques. Well, the final one, which is very rare, it has extreme Fajing in it. And you can see the sword go out, if you take a close up, and I'll do this, I'll definitely take a close up. You can see the sword get to the end of your tenon's abilities, and as it hits that very end, you can see the especially a real steel sword, like like the one I have in the other room. It's a really high grade carbon steel. It's got a very low but fast frequency, and you can hear it go. And the thinner the steel, the higher that pitch is. Um, and there's no way to stop that. And that's actually the goal, because remember, you're going to transfer your energy. The reason why Baji is so helpful to an operator's learning, or a warrior's learning, is because it shows you how to direct energy into a target. Okay, I call it my cannon. It's not my entire platform. It's only a tiny tool inside that platform. So the energy that you exert is supposed to go into the person's organ. And that's the way it works. Anyway, I hope this format works out. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments. And you can look me up on Patreon at Yang Wutan, YangWutang. And of course, here on Rumble, I'm going to post as much as I can. Thank you.